Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we will explore something often misunderstood yet mighty. Silence after a breakup. It might seem like nothing, no messages, no calls, no emotional outbursts. But in truth, silence is not emptiness, it's presence without noise. And when used with intention, it becomes one of the most profound ways to reclaim your power. Many people believe that after a breakup, the one who speaks first, reaches out or seeks closure is showing strength. But that response often comes from discomfort, an unwillingness to sit with uncertainty. What if instead your silence could speak louder than any words? What if your non-reaction said everything she needed to hear, without you ever needing to say a thing? In today's video, we'll uncover why your silence is not surrender. It's a message. It forces reflection. It shifts emotional control. It reveals who you truly are when stripped of ego and noise. And most importantly, it's where self-mastery begins. We'll walk through the psychological power of detachment, the impact of not reacting, and why silence, when used wisely, can make her question everything she thought she knew about you. So stay with me until the end, because this isn't just about getting over someone, it's about becoming someone new. Not for her, but for yourself. Let's begin. Number 1. Silence is the loudest scream. After a breakup, most women expect a familiar pattern. Tears, apologies, long messages filled with emotion and regret. They expect to feel in control of the aftermath because they've seen it happen. But when none of that happens, when you don't chase, explain, or even react, it disrupts the entire script. You post nothing, you say nothing. You don't watch her stories or respond to her silence with your emotional performance, and suddenly she isn't calm, she's confused. She doesn't panic because you left. She panics because she doesn't know what's happening behind your quiet. Her power was never just in the breakup, it was in being able to predict your response. When you don't follow that path, she loses the emotional control she once held. The silence you leave behind doesn't feel peaceful to her. It feels uncertain. Uncertainty is the one thing that keeps her up at night. The human brain hates blanks. It needs to fill in the gaps. So when there are no signs, signals, or emotional proof of your pain, it creates its own stories. She wonders if you've moved on, ever cared, or if someone else is helping you forget her. And the more she guesses, the further her mind spirals. The absence of emotion becomes its kind of message, a quiet declaration that you've stepped outside of her narrative. And that unknown, more than any word you could have said, echoes loudest in her world. Number 2, she's not used to losing. She expected you to fold, to come back with apologies, questions, or frustration. That's the pattern she's known. Say enough, stir the pot, pull a few emotional threads, and he'll come running. But this time, you didn't. You walked away and never looked back. No long goodbye, no dramatic closure, no chasing, just silence and distance. And that silence has a weight she didn't expect to feel. What unsettles her isn't just that you're gone and didn't need to be convinced to stay. You didn't take the bait. You didn't respond to the tension she created or the emotional hooks she left behind. She expected drama and got stillness. Expected a reaction and got a door quietly closing behind you. That quiet strength shakes something in her. The power shifted. Not because you tried to take control, but because you stopped giving it away. You didn't seal the exit with words. You simply left. And no, instead of standing in victory, she wonders what went wrong. Not because she misses the relationship itself, but because losing isn't a feeling she's familiar with, especially not on emotional grounds, which she thought she controlled. Now she's the one checking her phone, wondering what you're thinking, if you've moved on, and if you ever think about her. The space you left behind isn't just empty, it's uncomfortable. And that discomfort makes her reflect, not always out of regret, but from confusion. How did the one she expected to fall become the one who walked away first? There's a quiet power in doing nothing when everything in her expects you to do something. And in that space, she realizes this wasn't her planned ending, because this time it's not you who feels the loss, it's her. Number 3, emotions make you easy to control. She doesn't need to hear your feelings to know what you're going through. She watches your behavior. She sees how your name lights up in her notifications after days of silence. She notices the cryptic posts on your story, the late-night likes, and the sudden reappearances. And whether you realize it or not, she knows exactly what they mean. You miss her. You're hurting. You want her attention. But here's the truth. Acting on that pain doesn't bring her closer. It shows your hand. It tells her you're still emotionally tied, still reachable, still controlled by the hope that maybe she'll notice. And in that moment, the balance shifts, not in your favor. Emotion itself isn't a weakness, but the impulsive reaction is. You hand over your power when you move based on how you feel without pause or purpose. You show that she doesn't even need to say a word to get a response. All she has to do is pull back and wait. She doesn't chase because she knows you will. The strength isn't in pretending not to feel. The strength is feeling everything and choosing not to be ruled by it. The man who can hold his silence when he's hurting, the man who resists the urge to reach out just for relief, that's the man she starts to wonder about. That's the man she can't predict. And unpredictability is power. There's a quiet force in non-reaction. It's not coldness, it's self-respect wrapped in stillness. And when she can no longer read you, when her tactics don't get a rise, when the silence holds steady, she begins to question her control. You don't rise by reacting. You rise by mastering your reaction. That's where the shift begins. Not when you try to be noticed, but when you stop needing to be. Number 4. Pain becomes power when you channel it. There are moments when a man is brought to his knees not by weakness, but by heartbreak, loss, or the silence that follows someone walking away. It's in those quiet, brutal spaces that pain speaks the loudest. But pain doesn't come to destroy. It comes to strip away the noise, the distractions, the illusions, so you can begin again with nothing but truth. She may expect you to chase to explain how to fall apart, but instead, you go silent. You disappear from the drama and reappear somewhere else, under the weight rack in the gym, in a quiet room filled with books, or deep in the grind of your mission. Not to prove something to her, but to find something in yourself again. It's in that quiet rise that real power is born. Not the kind that demands to be seen, but the kind that commands respect by simply existing. You're not posting quotes or begging for attention. You're moving in silence and stacking progress brick by brick. That's what she didn't expect. She expected to collapse, but she witnessed the transformation. This shift is not about revenge. It's about alignment. The version of you born from pain doesn't chase validation. It lives with purpose. It understands that healing isn't loud, it's disciplined. It's showing up for yourself when no one's watching. It's progress with no applause. And when she sees that you're not broken, not waiting, not explaining, but evolving in silence, that's when the impact lands. Nothing shakes a woman more than realizing the man she once knew has turned his pain into power and walked forward without looking back. There's a simple truth here. Pain defines or refines you, and when you choose the latter, she'll feel it in ways words could never deliver. Number 5. She can't replace what was real. After the end, she might seem unshaken. She posts a photo with someone new, her laugh a little louder than usual, and her captions a little too perfect. It looks like she's moved on easily, as if what you had was nothing more than a short stop along the way. But beneath the surface, behind the bright images and fast smiles, something else is happening. Something quieter and more complicated. Most people think replacing someone means forgetting them. But in truth, what often happens is substitution, not healing. She may find someone quickly, not because she's found something better, but because the silence you left behind feels unbearable. Rebounds are like mirrors held at the right angle to avoid seeing the emptiness. They're distractions, not solutions. The new man may occupy space but doesn't touch the same places you did. What you gave her wasn't surface level, it was emotionally grounding presence. A sense of being known without having to explain herself constantly, and that can't be duplicated overnight. You weren't just physically available, you were emotionally invested. And that difference is something she might not notice right away, but she will feel it, especially in the quiet moments when she needs more than company and realizes what's beside her. She can't meet her where you once did. She may try to recreate your connection by repeating routines you shared or mirroring how you used to make her feel safe. But it doesn't land the same. Because real intimacy isn't about familiarity, it's about depth. And the depth you brought isn't something that can be copied with effort alone. It was built over time through presence, honesty, and trust. It wasn't just what you gave, but how you gave it. In time, the high of novelty begins to fade. She starts to notice your absence and how she feels around you. There's a reason we remember people, not for what they said, but for how they made us feel. That feeling is what lingers long after conversations end. She may still be surrounded by attention, but finds herself lonelier than alone, because genuine connection can't be replaced. It can only be missed. An old truth fits here perfectly. You don't know what's irreplaceable until you try to replace it. The more she searches for a replica of what she had, the more obvious the difference becomes. It's not about ego or regret, it's about recognition. Recognition that what she let go wasn't just a person, but a presence. One that saw her, stood beside her quietly, and left behind a silence too honest to ignore. Number 6. Rebuild in silence. After the tension settles, after the final message is left unanswered, and after she believes you've quietly faded from her world, something deeper begins to stir. Not in you, but in her. Silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the beginning of a transformation. Not the kind you announce with bold declarations, but the kind you build brick by brick in the quiet. You don't explain, you don't justify, and you don't update. You rebuild in silence and let her imagination do what it naturally does: spiral. The less she sees, the more she thinks. Her thoughts turn inward when there are no breadcrumbs to follow, no late-night stories to scroll through, and no signs of where your mind or heart might be. And what used to be certainty about who you were becomes questions about who you might now be. Has he changed? Is he better now? Is someone else seeing a version of him I never got to witness? Her mind fills in the silence with curiosity, then with doubt, and then with obsession. This is where the fundamental shift happens, because in that space where she expected drama, reaction, or one last chase, she's met with stillness. And in that stillness she notices the vacuum your absence creates. She may not say it, she may even act like it doesn't affect her, but silence can echo in places that words can't reach. Men are often told they need to prove something when they hurt or walk away. They should show her what she lost, make a comeback with a roar, and proudly announce the upgrade. But the men who genuinely evolve know better. The real power isn't in being seen, it's being missed. It's not about rubbing success in her face. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs her validation at all. You don't need to announce your return. Let your progress speak for itself. And it always does, not through flashy gestures or curated posts, but through the quiet strength that comes from growth done for yourself. Not for revenge, not for attention, not for applause. So when you disappear, don't just vanish. Work, heal, build, not to win her back, but to reclaim the parts of yourself you gave away too easily. That's when silence stops being a pause and becomes a message louder than anything you could say. She'll wonder where you went, and by the time she realizes the answer, you'll already be too far ahead to look back. Number 7. Her mind becomes a battlefield. There's a moment in every shifting relationship when words lose their weight. After enough tension, enough repeated arguments, and enough moments where you felt your voice was wasted, something in you chooses stillness over noise. No long messages. There are no emotional explanations. There's no effort to convince her of what she's never heard. Just quiet, just gone. And that silence becomes the most unsettling sound she's ever faced. You don't argue. You don't beg. You don't need to. The absence of your reaction becomes your statement. And while she may have expected conflict, expected to draw you into another emotional standoff, what she receives instead is nothing. Nothing grows quickly. It fills every room she walks into. It echoes in every notification she doesn't get. Because when you stop showing up, digitally or emotionally, it creates a void she can't ignore. This is where the psychological shift begins. Her mind becomes a battlefield. In the silence you've left behind, her brain does what it's wired to do. It fills in the gaps. She starts asking questions she has never had to ask before. Has he moved on? Is he seeing someone else? Why is he so calm when I'm spiraling? These aren't just passing thoughts. They become constant internal noise. And the more she doesn't know, the louder those thoughts grow. What unsettles her isn't your presence. It's your lack of it. It's the realization that you gave her peace while she expected a reaction. Not the kind that soothes her, but that reveals how much she had taken your attention for granted. That kind of peace creates pressure, because when someone stops reacting, it means they've stopped needing to prove anything. They've already made a decision, and nothing creates more psychological weight than knowing the other person no longer seeks closure, because they are the closure. Stoicism isn't about cold detachment, it's about controlled response. It's about having the power to speak and choosing not to. When a man disengages without bitterness, when he removes his presence without leaving pieces of himself behind, he doesn't weaken his position, he strengthens it. And while she's left questioning, doubting, replaying, you've already stepped into stillness, a stillness born not of indifference, but of clarity. There's a quiet truth in this moment. The mind always chases what it doesn't understand. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop reacting, you become the mystery. You become the open question she can't answer, and in a world where people seek control through emotional reaction, your silence is the one move she can't predict, and the one she'll remember. Number 8. Detachment makes you irresistible. A rare kind of power rises in a man when he stops trying to be understood. Not because he's given up, but because he's risen above the need to explain himself to someone who never truly listened. Detachment isn't coldness. It's the quiet decision to stop trading your peace for someone else's chaos. It's choosing clarity over confusion, strength over struggle, and presence over performance. And when a man finally steps back, not out of anger but out of self-respect, the dynamic between them changes completely. She notices first in the silence, not the kind meant to wound, but the type that no longer waits. You're not watching your phone anymore. You're not crafting responses to subtle jabs or decoding what she meant. You've stopped reacting because you've stopped revolving around her. And at that moment, something inside her shifts. What once felt certain to her becomes uncertain. Your absence begins to echo louder than any words you used to send. She senses the distance, and it unsettles her. The emotional gravity flips. Suddenly, you're no longer predictable, no longer waiting, and need her validation to feel steady. Your detachment doesn't make you disappear. It makes you mysterious, present but unavailable, calm but unreachable. And that contradiction pulls at something more profound than desire. It challenges her sense of control. This isn't about being aloof or playing games. You're simply no longer ruled by her moods or her choices. She can no longer shape your day with a glance or ruin your peace with a message. You're not cold, you're clear. And clarity is magnetic. It shows you've found something more significant than her approval, your center. You've become the man shaped by the storm, not broken by it. The man who didn't just survive the emotional chaos, but came out of it more focused, grounded, and whole. She becomes a memory, not a mission. And while she may look back wondering how she lost her hold on you, you're already walking forward, toward a life that no longer spins around anyone but yourself. That's what absolute detachment does. It doesn't make you disappear, it makes you unforgettable. Ultimately, your silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a declaration of strength. It tells the world and her that you no longer seek validation where it was never consistently given. You didn't lose anything by walking away. You reclaimed your peace, focus, and sense of self. She may have expected chaos, emotional breakdowns, and desperate messages. Instead, she was met with composure, stillness, and progress. That's where the true shift happens, not in dramatic gestures, but in quiet evolution. A man who no longer reacts is a man who cannot be controlled. And a man who rebuilds in silence becomes someone no one can replace. Detachment, when it comes from clarity and not bitterness, becomes magnetic. It turns confusion into curiosity, absence into obsession. And perhaps the most incredible realization of all, she wasn't the gift. The breakup was because it brought you back to yourself. I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever used silence to regain power? What happened when you chose peace over reaction? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more insights into self-mastery, stoic strength, and emotional resilience. See you in the next one.